They get started on Amazon, they do the copy paste method, and then they come to us months later and say, I just can't figure out why I'm not getting any sales. You're not thinking about the actual user experience and making sure that every image is serving a function, then of course you're not going to get your conversion rate right.
Action Insights.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Action Insights. I am so stoked today to be joined by Daniela Bolzman from Mindful Goods. So she's the founder of an agency, Mindful Goods. They help sellers with their listings. So that's what we're going to be discussing today, how to get it right, how to analyze it, the pieces that you should be thinking about. And so, yeah, welcome Daniela. So excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, tell us, a little bit about you, how you got started, and what it is that you do.
Yeah, great question. So, Daniela Bolzman, founder of Mindful Goods. At this point, we currently help 100 plus brands every year with their listing optimization and their storefront. We started about 5 years ago as a full service Amazon agency, doing soup to nuts, everything just to learn it. And then really realized where our sweet spot was and decided that we just wanted to focus on SEO and content. And so we made that change about 2.5 years ago now, and we have never looked back. And we have just become just super proficient in the listing side, and it's become our superpower.
Yeah, I love it. As somebody who comes from like the advertising side of things, I know good listings, like conversion rate, how your product appears to sellers, it has such a big impact on everything else when it comes to e-com in general. Having a good listing, super important when people can't touch and feel the product. That's the one touch point you get. So important to get it right. So maybe that's the first question, like, why is it so important to get the listing right? What makes this like something that you can't sleep on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one way that I like to look at it is the way that I like to explain it is that there's really two steps of this Amazon puzzle for most brands, right? When you listen to gurus online, you're going to hear there's 150 things you need to do. I just did a co-hosted a webinar where they did 49 hacks for Amazon, and it was awesome. But that's a lot of hacks to remember, a lot of pro tips. But really, you can break it down. Our process is 3 steps. But the way that I like to explain why we focus on the 3 steps is really broken down into two pieces of the Amazon puzzle. So the first piece is figuring out your conversion and your list, right? And once you've figured that out and you have that foundation set, then you can move on to driving traffic. And so why would you move on to driving traffic and spending your hard-earned dollars if your conversion rate is not right? You're just going to be wasting and spend, right? And time again, the agencies that love working with Mindful Goods are like really loving the client work because their ads are performing better because the listings are already optimized in advance. 80% of this legwork can be done in advance, and I highly recommend investing in it upfront because we have seen so many brands that just come to us. They get started on Amazon, they do the copy paste method, and then they come to us months later and say, I just can't figure out why I'm not getting any sales. If you just copy paste stuff from your website or from your Dropbox and you're not thinking about the actual user experience and making sure that every image is serving a function, then of course you're not going to get your conversion rate right.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. Even if you go and you look at like Amazon advertising, if you go into their system, like, hey, I want to learn about Amazon advertising, in their teaching modules for their advertising, they say all over the place, make sure your listing is retail ready, make sure your product is retail ready. Like, we want you to best foot forward if you're driving traffic. You want to make sure the traffic convert.
So as part of like the Amazon verified or I can't even, it's such a long name for the program that we're in, but we're in the Amazon Services Verified Partner Program,
Mhm.
which is for creative services, right? And we had to go through a training as well. A lot of it was how we can create assets that support advertisers
Mhm.
and how we can create assets that support brands who are doing advertising. And so a lot of the best practices that they say are exactly what you said, but the challenge is that it wasn't put into context, right? Like
Mhm.
we as creatives know what that means because we have those best practices and we follow them day in and day out. But perhaps the newbie brand builder or even an experienced brand builder has a hard time putting that into context of saying it's not just a product on white image. It's what else can you do with that product on white image? It's not just a lifestyle image. It's what exact lifestyle image do you need in order to answer the question for this buyer when they're at this stage of the buying process. So it's figuring out all of those little nuances. And that's why we came up with a formula to make it easier for brands to understand, because I do get it. It's second nature to us. It's intuitive for us, but it's not intuitive for the average person. So that's why we've tried to keep simplifying it over time.
Yeah, I love it. So listing ready, retail ready, have a good, something that can convert shoppers. Great. So people are saying, yes, I need that. So how does somebody go about starting? Like, how do you go about evaluating what changes should I be making to my listing?
Yeah, that's another great question. So there's really a few different ways you can look at it. So we broke down a sales funnel for Amazon. And that's how we broke down our 3-step process. And so really you want to understand where you are in that funnel, which piece of it needs improving, right? So the first piece is actually sessions, right? How many sessions are you getting to your listing? The second step is clicks. How many clicks are coming into your actual product listing? And the third step is how many of those turn into buyers, right? So you can actually look at that data to understand, okay, which is the part that we need to move the needle on? Is it that we're getting lots of traffic into our listing, but it's just not converting? Well, then we need to focus on the content that's inside. Is it that we're actually getting sound in the search results, but nobody's clicking into our listing? Then we need to focus on getting more. So it's like really identifying which one of those 3 levers you need to move. And ideally, what we like to look at is all 3 at once. So 80% of the work is done up front. But then over time, as you start to work on your ad strategy, you might realize, oh, okay, now we can pull this one a little bit more. Let's see what else we can do to optimize this main image, or let's see what else we can do to optimize this A+ content. Like you can go deeper and deeper over time, but you want to be doing that legwork up front.
Yeah, I love it. And for, sellers listening who may not, may be getting started on your journey, that data is actually found in your business reports. If you go into Seller Central Reports, business reports, they give you click sessions along with a whole bunch of other information. And then your unit session percentage, which is your conversion rate. So Danielle is saying, hey, go look at your numbers, which is a great way. It's a lot of times I think we get stuck in this creative side and think it's all creative, but in a lot of ways, like data influences what we do with the creatives. And it sounds like you all have really found a way to let the creatives speak to the data and data to creatives and let them work in synergy. So you were talking about your 3-step process and the traffic. So what's that first piece? If you say, okay, I need to start at square one, I need to get more traffic, what does that look like?
All right, drum roll. First piece, SEO, right? So search engine optimization. We have to remember, first and foremost, Amazon is a search engine. A lot of us know this, but really one way to look at it and understand it from a buyer's perspective is to take yourself out of the equation. Like, you know your product intimately, and you might think instantly, okay, I'm selling this journal. What are the things that people might want to search for? They might want like a lined journal, or they might be searching for the features around your journal. But you have to think of other angles too, right? So you have to be taking yourself into the buyer's experience of, what do they need the journal for? Are they buying it as a gift? Are they buying it for their mom or for their daughter? Or are they buying it for their husband or for their cousin? What is the end thing that they're trying to buy, and what is the angle? And I think that's the part that's a little bit tricky, because once you're so close to your product, you're like, no, these are my 3 keywords, or these are my 10 keywords. But really, it's about going a little bit deeper and understanding, well, actually, all of the keywords around journals, about 40% of them are related to females who buy journals for these specific reasons: for meditation, for daily practices, for journaling, for habits, for whatever the things are. And specifically for daughters, mothers, sisters, those are the types of words that we need to be researching and understanding and then infusing into our listing. So that's the first thing, is really be thinking outside of yourself and understanding what are all the angles related to your product that are super relevant in terms of SEO.
Yeah, I love it. And it sounds like that's what you were talking about too earlier on, like the constant iteration. Like SEO is never done. And honestly, what we've found, at least especially on the advertising side, is the longer you sell something, the more you really get to see the types of shoppers that interact with your product, even maybe through the advertising data or now with the search query dashboard. There's ways to better understand the customers who are looking for your products. And it sounds like you're saying constantly be analyzing that, or at least, honestly, on
Yeah.
a what frequent basis.
I mean, that's the benefit. If you're an existing seller, especially if you're already a bestseller and you have all this data from ads that you've run in the past, pull that data and give it to teams like us and let us analyze it to understand what else we could do to move those keywords up organically within your listings to places that matter. So moving them into the title, especially if your ad team is telling you these are the top converting keywords that we want to be going after to move you up in rank. Let's infuse those back into your listing so it's working together as far as the strategy goes.
Awesome. So you're saying that there are certain things in SEO, like it's almost like things are weighted. So what would you say is, and I honestly can't remember. I have people ask me all the time. I think I remember that the title is the most weighted, but when it comes to A plus bullets and copy, maybe you can go over the places you can add SEO. And then if you have any insights to offer on like what is more, has more
I
weight,
mean,
I guess.
title is like the holy grail. So
Yeah.
just remember that, and usually the front of the title, not the back end. So anything that's not as important, put towards the back end of the title. That's the way that you can play around with it. Everything else, then it goes back end bullets, the alt text for the A plus content. But honestly, all of that stuff is great, but the title is really where you're going to move the needle. So you just want to pick those 2 or 3 keywords that you're going after and really think through that strategy with your ads manager to make sure that you guys are making those changes together.
Definitely. I know I'm going off script a little bit, but this is a question I hear pop up a lot. So I'm sure there's some listeners wondering. I know there are some people who are a bit afraid to change their title because they're like, oh, I'm going to get de-indexed or I'm going to mess with something. Like, I know I can improve, but I don't want to mess with what I have. But I'm sure you, seeing as you change titles all the time, do you have any insights or comfort to offer on that?
I look at it, well, we do advise people to be careful with this. If you're an existing established seller, you can choose to change one word at a time. And then you're not doing anything drastic to your account. The other thing you can do now is use an Amazon experiment to test the title before you roll it out. Super safe way to do. And then lastly, the other scenario is rip the band-aid off. If you have nothing to lose by changing the title, there's some brands that they're just like, their performance can only go up, right? So if you're in that boat, like just rip off the band-aid, make the changes you need to make, and note what you're making changes of. And then from that point on, you want to be more cautious about what you're changing and you can see what's moving the needle and what's not.
That makes a whole lot of sense. And that should give some comfort. And I love your tips on like doing it a little bit incrementally, utilizing Amazon's ability to do the or A/B testing. I'm all over the place. A plus content, A/B testing. Yeah, here we go.
I am like the biggest fan of Amazon experiments. I know this, I feel like not enough people are testing or they're running one test and then they're making it like a bad assumption of Amazon experiments. But
Mm-hmm.
really at the end of the day, it's the first tool that Amazon has given us on the content side to actually put metrics and dollar figures, actual forecasting behind what's working and what's not. So if you are getting these changes done by a creative team, you can actually put the new content into an Amazon experiment before you upload it to your listing. And you can actually let Amazon tell you, is this content going to perform better than my existing content? So why would you not do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So traffic, SEO, top of the funnel, or not top of the funnel, but basically becoming aware, that first piece of the funnel. So then when it comes to the other pieces and creating synergy between your copy, you want to get the traffic, then how do you get people to click? How do you get them to like actually go to the listing?
Yeah. Okay. So this is where we start getting into um, the difference between the levers of your copy versus your images. And so what we like to do is, let's say you wrote your copy for your listing, you infused all the keywords. We like to use the bullets as our direction for the creative. So if we're saying the 5 most important things in the bullets, then we need to show the 5 most important things. It needs to be a show and tell aspect within those images. But before we get even into the listing, there's one crucial step that happens just before that, right? How do we get the clicks? So if you're showing up in the search results, you're still showing up against 50 competitors. So how do you get people to click on your listing versus anybody else's? And this is where the biggest, lowest hanging fruit is for most brands on Amazon that you can do today and make a difference, right? And you can use Amazon experiments to split test this, which is brilliant. This for me, I feel like most brands think they have a really great main image. I beg to differ. I think you can ideate, and why not improve your click-through performance and get more of that traffic stolen away from your competitors and into your listing. What we do is we come up with 2 to 3 different concepts of looking at the competitive set and saying, okay, what else could we do here? Could we add a hard shadow here and a light shadow here? Could we tweak the angle? Could we add an outline? Could we add a badge or a post edit? Could we brighten the colors? What else could we do to make this really pop? And so those are all of the things that we're thinking about. It's all of the eye candy around that main image. And it's really that main image is really its own step in the process that I think far too many brands are overlooking.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree so much. I think there's a lot of people, but they'll come up with a new product and they'll say, like, oh, my product's the best on the market. It stands out from the competition. And you're like, great, you should show that somewhere, and especially in the main image, because if you're showing up on a search page amongst a sea of other products that are slight variations of yours, but let's be honest, there's a lot of products that looks all the same. As a shopper on Amazon, it's like, which one? I don't know. And so getting yourself to be able to shine through on that page is, let's not lie, it's a challenge these days for sure.
We actually worked with one of my favorite brands, Yes Bar, and we had them isolate the main image change, and they saw an 11.8% increase in click through traffic within 2 weeks.
Which is huge. I mean,
Huge.
especially if you're
That's like
talking,
insanely huge.
I mean, that's huge. And then even just talk about it through an advertising perspective. If you get better click-throughs on your ads, you're just gaining that much more traffic. Like, you're already paying to be there on the page. Why not get more of the traffic?
Mhm. Yeah, we recently did a post edit where we took a product on white image. It was a beautiful photo,
Mhm.
but it was and it was done in a studio. So really great quality, but it was kind of washed out. We brightened it up, made it more crisp, added some post edits to it, added a few little tricks of the trade. And again, within 2 weeks, it was like an 8% increase in click through traffic. So it's like this stuff is doable. It's actually it's just thinking outside the box and looking at your competitive set and saying, okay, and look at other categories like supplements is so competitive, beauty, like
Oh, yeah.
get ideas from other places and see, okay, this one has packaging, this one doesn't, this one uses like the droppers knocked over, this one uses like a hard shadow, like get all these ideas flowing and then create quick mock-ups, nothing fancy, drop them into PickFu, get an idea from 50 Amazon shoppers on PickFu, what's working, what's not, and then polish off the one that's the winner. And you're almost
That's it.
guaranteed to get better click-through rates just from that.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think, and what you're talking about is a constant iteration, constant drive to get better. Because there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I have my listing up. Again, it's working, it's good. I don't want to mess with a good thing. And what you're saying is that you should at least test. You're
Yeah.
giving ways to test. Like pick
Yeah.
food, great way to test. A/B testing is a great way to test. Just see. Can you make it
Yeah.
better? Because you might be missing out on that, 8%, 11%, which would be huge.
Huge. And that's the point is that, like, for instance, we'll come up with two, and I might have a favorite, and you might have a favorite.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, we're going to default to whatever the brand owner says is their favorite. But
Mhm.
that really shouldn't be the default, right? The default should be what's bringing you more sales,
Mm.
right? So we'll run the test in Pick Food just to show them, like, hey, you might have an opinion. I might have an opinion. Here's what the data says, right?
Yeah.
But even though we're getting this conclusive data from Amazon or from Pick Food, that's not the Amazon data. So now we have
Yeah.
to test again inside of Amazon. So at the end of the day, pick whichever one you want, run it as an Amazon experiment, let Amazon tell you which one's the winner, keep that one,
Right.
and then do it again. Do it again and try to beat your winner, you know?
Yeah, I mean, even if you're the top of the pack, you still wanna keep that head start.
We've done refreshes, I think 3 or maybe 4 times now with Yes Bar
Mhm.
because they're just like every time they're like, we don't want to get stale. We want to show like our user generated content. We want like they're doing fun things all the time and they want to keep it fresh, you know?
Yeah, that's a great way to keep it fresh. So, I mean, 100% main image is huge, and I would agree with that. I mean, especially when you're talking again, I come from an ads perspective, but sponsored products, which is makes up the bulk of any ad account, I don't care how big you are, how many sponsored brand ads you're running, you're still doing a huge chunk through sponsored products. That's the image that shows up. That's the only thing we can really change on how our sponsored product ads are gonna show up. So if you get that right, I mean, it's gonna roll through and benefit a whole host of other things.
Let me
But
ask you this because this
Mhm.
is a piece that I don't know. So,
Yeah.
when you are setting up those campaigns, can you actually set one up with one image and set one up with another? Or do they have to
So
whatever is okay? So, what happens if there's an Amazon experiment running on that for the main image at that time?
that I do not know. I
That would be
should look
super
at
interesting.
I should look into that. I wonder, I'll have to go read the literature on A/B testing. I I guess I would assume they would split test any traffic, but they might not be. It might just be the original image. And that's just an assumption. I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah,
I'll go look it up though. I want to know.
well, just for the people who are seeing this, I do want to clarify that PickFu is a paid tool, very affordable, but it is a paid tool, and you can use Mindful VIP to get a discount.
There you go.
Uh,
We'll put it in the notes.
but the Amazon Experiments tool is completely free. The downside is you have to wait at least 4 weeks. Amazon is recommending 10 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks for that data because they want to give you the best forecasting that they can, the best and most accurate forecasting that they can, which is kind of the gold behind it. So
Mhm.
I recommend you just hurry up and wait.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, and we'll definitely put that link in the notes so you could check out PickFu and get a discount if you want to decide to use them. Cool. So I think we went over, I mean, obviously, two steps of the funnel. So what is the third piece of the funnel? Like, all right, so we have a main image, we got the great click through rate. How do we get people to convert?
Yeah. So they're finally inside your listing, right? Now, here's where you're taking those bullets and you're showing and telling all the way down the page. And the idea behind this is that we want every image to serve a function, right? So if we talk about product images first, that's the first thing shoppers are going to see. And most of shopping activity, as we know, is happening on mobile and it shows up right at the top. And these big images, you want them to be mobile friendly and you want every single one of them not to be like a pretty photo of a flat lay and your product on the table. That does nothing. That does nothing for you. It's pretty. It shows people how their headphones are going to look sitting on a table. Sure. But what you really want is you want to show it in use. That's the number one type of image that you can use. And you want to show and tell on every image, meaning you want to have a text layover that's mobile friendly. And even better, if you're taking those keywords that you know people are shopping for when they type in the search box and you lay those into your graphics. So you're getting like that subconscious secondary layer of people getting their search feature or their search function answered as they're seeing the graphics. And the final pro tip I have for you there is that go down to the word clouds and read the comments that people are giving you on your products and try to understand some of the language that they're using over and over again and use that back in your copy within your images so that you're subconsciously using your shoppers to sell your future customers. So it's that in the product images. And then A plus content. So they keep scrolling because they want to get to the reviews, right? But we all know if you have A plus content, they're going to hit that before they hit the reviews. This is your last chance to sell your product, to get your product sold before they hit those reviews. Because as we all know, reviews can be hit or miss, right? So sometimes you can't control that. But what you can control is what they're seeing in that A plus content. So it needs to be scroll stopping. It needs to like really grab their attention. And so one of the strategies that we deploy, yes, we include SEO modules, but the SEO modules are not the friendliest on mobile or desktop, and they really don't grab your attention very much at all. So that's just there as a best practice. How we develop the rest of the banners in A plus is stacking them one on top of the next for at least 5 or 6 banners and creating them almost with a seamless scroll landing page effect. So imagine if we're designing a website landing page and you wanted the whole thing to look like one big infographic. You wouldn't want basically how Amazon has their modules like chunked up and like, text everywhere. Nobody wants that anymore. Like we are all iPhone users. Like we like really beautiful products. We are primed for this. And so Amazon is giving us these tools mixed with other modules that maybe I don't recommend using, but that is a creative way that you can use just those banners to stack one on top of the next. And it gets even more impactful when you get access to the premium A plus content that's now available.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hear it from shoppers a lot like, oh, I want to be the premium version in my space. And it's like, great, but are you demonstrating to shoppers that you are the premium version? And I've seen some gorgeous A+ content. I mean, we all know when we hit those landing pages, we're like, okay, this is brand, this is premium. I get that feeling. And we all know when we hit those other landing pages, we're like, okay, what's the price? Like, just give me the price and I'll differentiate on that. But definitely a A+, at least from a shopper perspective, it seems like that's really a place to shine.
Definitely. I mean, it depends on your target demo though, right? Like if you're selling products that are just commodity products, me too products,
Mhm.
yes, there's always going to be a market for that. And that
Mhm.
for us that's not who we serve. So that's not what I'm preaching about or talking to.
Mhm.
But one of the toughest categories out there right now is CPG. And CPG
Yeah.
brands are leveling up and leveling up and leveling up their packaging so they can look good on digital shelves and physical shelf. They are investing tons of money into their packaging and they want all of their digital assets to match that, you know? So as they start to roll out changes on their D2C websites, they want to make sure that shoppers on Amazon are having that same experience.
Yeah, absolutely. You teased something about premium A+ content. I know there was a buzz in the space about, oh, more people getting access to that. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. So premium A plus content used to be only available to brands that were willing to pay for it. And we're talking like high ticket, 100 to $200,000 is what Amazon was making them pay for this. But now Amazon has actually rolled it out to brand registered brands who have 15, I believe it's 15 plus submissions of A plus content approved in the last 12 months and have turned on a brand story on all of their brand ASINs. So in theory, you don't technically have to have 15 ASINs. You have to have 15 approved A plus content submissions.
Mm,
So even if you have 3 products, just keep
yeah.
tweaking that A plus content.
But
So
you
you
now you have an excuse to go and adjust your A+ content and
roll and
that.
adjust that A plus content, get the access to premium. It should roll out like every month they're reviewing your account. So just keep tweaking it until you get access. And then once you do get access, there's some additional modules in there. So one of the key features is that it's a seamless design, right? So if you look at regular basic A plus content, there's like these white margins, which who cares? For the regular person, nobody cares. But for designers and creatives, we're like, no, that 5 pixels of white space, it ruins everything. So for us, this is a really big deal because now we can create a full graphic that doesn't get broken up by these weird spaces and it truly feels seamless. And it, again, the whole point is to stop the scroll. The other thing that you're getting is you're getting a couple other like modules for engagement. You're getting comparison grids that are much bigger looking. They take up more of the screen. So it's just another way to add engagement and differentiate your experience from every other brand out there if you're selecting the right modules. And you can embed video in your
Oh,
Ankles content, which is huge.
yeah, that
I
that
mean, a full scale, like no white space on any sidebar or anything, all the way across video.
okay, that in itself, I'd say is worth the little bit of effort for the price of entry.
Totally. And here's the thing with video too. I think a lot of brands are really hesitant to upload iPhone footage, but we're in a TikTok generation right now. Like,
Yeah.
if that tells you anything, like you should be flipping out your iPhone and just taking different footage, taking the user generated footage that your customers are posting online, mashing it all together, make something fun that truly looks like it came from your brand. It doesn't have to be high production value. Of course, everyone wants these like beautiful cinematic brand storytelling 5 to 10 to $20,000 videos, but you don't need that. You absolutely don't need it anymore. Like you can do so much with user generated beautiful content.
Mhm. Yeah, and what you're saying too is like if you get access to it, that I mean, not in essence at the hard part, obviously developing the videos, but it's in the A plus content which can be updated. So if you have the availability, you might as well maximize again that listing as much as possible. And then, if you want to go, if the listing gets enough sales and it makes sense for you to do a high production, maybe that's something you can look into.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing about high production value is like, remember, you can slice and dice it up and use that video on your ads and in other places as well and your social. So it's not like one video has to be for one thing
Mhm.
either.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, this has been awesome. You've dropped some insane tips and some insane tactics along with just giving a really great explanation of how to go through your listing. Love the data-driven approach. Somebody who lives in data, like it's always cool to see, okay, so how do you marry the creative side with the data side? This has been awesome. I so appreciate this. And, for those listeners who are like, okay, that sounds awesome. I'd rather not do it myself. Where can people find you?
You can actually head to mindfulgoods.co. And if you want full webinar training of the 3-step process that I broke down today, we have tutorials that you can buy on the back end of our webinar walkthrough at launchreadylisting.co.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely put that link in the description so you can go check it out. And again, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure.
See you next time on Action Insights.